Welcome to the Build a Lifestyle podcast, where we're going to talk about building your lifestyle. We're going to talk about money, family, relationships, health and fitness, spiritual and self-development, and experience. What are you doing for fun? What are we doing to experience this life that we're here to do? So welcome to the show. I'm your host, Michael Burns. Let's go. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Build a Lifestyle podcast with your host, Mike Burns. So I'm pretty stoked about my guest that I have here today. His name's Sam Newell. And Sam and I met, I think, 2015, 16?
A few years ago. It's been a while.
We met in Chicago at a Rod Cleef's multifamily event. And that's when I was starting to look at, maybe exploring commercial real estate. And you were doing the same thing around that time.
Yeah.
So back then you were, I think when we talked, you were slaying it as an agent, really just crushing agent deals, doing some flips, buying some rentals, single family stuff primarily.
Yeah.
Working with a builder maybe.
Yeah. I'd worked with a few builders. 2018 was my last full-time year in real estate, made 1.2 million. And then I was like, I really want to transition. Killed it this year. It's a good year to transition. And then you and I met. Still remember the reason I wanted to talk to you is you had a really sexy suit coat on, sports jacket.
I remember that jacket, dude. I actually have
it
that
was
picture.
so sexy.
But then I was rocking a flat brim hat.
Yeah,
too.
I was like, oh, this guy he's dressed for success. He's like, he's going to kill it. So, and everyone else at the conference was in jeans and a t-shirt. And it's like, so you notice people that put in a little extra effort, and those are the type of people I like to spend time with.
Well, dude, I appreciate that. So, guys, if you're like me, whenever I'm listening to something, I always want to know, who is this guy? Who are these people? Are they worth listening to? So I'm going to start with Sam's resume because it's extremely impressive. So 4 years in multifamily, right? Mm-hmm. This guy's got 1,635 doors, a $200 million portfolio, raised over $50 million of private money capital. And you're now doing multifamily coaching as well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of Sam and his resume of what he's doing. But dude, I think the biggest thing, and even for me, because I flip a lot of houses and really comfortable in the single family. And I think a lot of guys, you start single family and then they make that transition to commercial, but it's scary because it's an entirely different scenario, So it's been cool to watch you. But also another thing that I really like about commercial is the scale. We just talked about that. 4 years, 1,635 doors. Like, that's super impressive. So I guess tell everyone a little bit, like, what was your experience of the transition from saying, hey, I'm a rock star agent, I'm kicking ass, making money as an agent, doing some flip deals, little hard money, whatever. The process of leaving something that you're really good at and that and transitioning into something that's new and that you're not good at. Because what I've noticed, too, is you can't do both.
Right.
It's kind of like, would you agree with that? You got it's one or the other?
Yeah. I mean, you've got to be able to spend time and energy on something. And rarely do people have the ability to do two full-time jobs or two things well at once. Yeah. One of them is going to suffer. And I see a lot of people do that. They try to balance both and they ended up failing at one. You got to make money. Mm-hmm. You got to grow a company. And that's been the balance since 2018 is, luckily, I had a really nice nest egg saved up and a few properties I was able to sell to float me while I figured this thing out. And it's been an absolute, how do I want to say this? It's been an absolute amazing journey, but really, really hard.
There's always that but.
Really hard, really fun, because experience is the best teacher. Mm-hmm. You can go to the boot camps. Rod Cleef has an amazing educational system. Jake and Gino, there's all these, disrupt equity. You can go to all these conferences and learn. And then you're like, well, why did they say that though? And then you go through the process and you're like, oh yeah, that's why I need to do it. Or actually I like doing it this way. And so, I've spent a lot of time and a lot of money figuring this thing out. And I just went full time though. And I knew I wanted to go full time because I wanted to crush it. And I also didn't want to worry about trying to do two things at once. So I stopped cold turkey selling real estate in July of 2018. I still had sales come to me because naturally I had clients and a lot of past investors and people that came to me. But my income went from 1.2 to like 100 to 200,000 in Utah real estate. And I shifted full time into multifamily.
Dude, it's mentally, if you're anything like you or me, you're an entrepreneur, you're a sales guy, we're not okay with doing the same that we did last year, let alone going from $1.2 million to like 100, maybe 200 grand. You're making 10% of the money. Like that's mentally a tough thing. So you really got to commit to it. So with the whole transition, you know, I'm curious, up front, there's what you think it's going to be like, right? Grant Cardone always talks about it's going to take 10 times more than what you think it's going to.
Yeah.
But what was your experience of like what you thought that transition was going to look like, or what it was going to require? What, you know, what your game plan was, what you were concerned about? Because, you know, you go to Rod Cleef, you go to these different events and you get a blueprint, which is awesome. But a blueprint is only a blueprint. Things actually change when you're willing to do the work and actually make a change like you did, and willing to get uncomfortable and put it all on the line, really leaving where you were making good money. So what was that transition like what you thought it was going to be like, and then what it actually was like and what your experience was?
Yeah. And, you know, as a multifamily coach now, I try to help people learn faster. And these other gurus and these other coaches give you everything you need to know under the sun to do multifamily. And what I found is I didn't know how the hell to understand if a deal was going to be profitable or not.
Yeah.
And you look at deals, and you look at the assumptions that these experienced operators had, and you're like, well, why do you have those assumptions? How do you know how much it's going to cost to paint a building? And you don't know until you've painted 10, 15 buildings, and you know it's going to, in Texas, this is what it's going to cost, or different things. And so I tried to fail as fast as I possibly could. I would bring deals to these other operators and say, hey, I think this is a good deal. And they say, nope, here's why. And so what I found is I was worried about raising money, which ended up not being a problem. I was worried about LLCs. I worried about branding my company. I was worried about all these different things that they teach you, building a website. And now when I have my students that want to get in, that ask me that question, what should I do? How do I speed up the process? What's going to be the hardest part? I say, go figure out how to really understand a deal. What makes this 300-unit apartment complex profitable or unprofitable? And at the end of the day, that's the moneymaker, because it's how you buy the property, not how good you can manage it, because you can never manage a property profitable if you pay too much money for it or if you have the wrong loan on it. And so that was the hardest part. Is my partner, Lyndon, and I, we sat in my basement office for months underwriting deals. And we probably went through 200 deals till we bought our hotel. And we were really conservative. We held back. Well, there's a few properties we probably missed because we didn't know if it was a good deal or not.
So real quick, the hotel was the first multifamily commercial deal.
Yep.
So from the time you went to, say, this Rod Cleef event when I met you to closing on that first commercial deal, how much time was that?
That was just over a year.
So about a year.
But the thing I did that I recommend highly to people is jump in someone else's deal. Someone that has a really good track record, go work for them for free. Stop being arrogant and greedy. There's so many people that say, hey, I want this for myself. Yep. So I'm going to do my own deal. This guy I was just talking to that really wants to grow, not out of Utah here, but really well-known, small multifamily operator, has about 100 doors. He told me, hey, I'm too greedy to work with other people. He came out and said it. I'm too greedy. I want it all for myself. And I was like, well, what's better? And I showed him my income from 1,635 doors, my company's income, and his income from 100 doors. And he's like, well, good point. And so what I said is, you know what, I'm just going to take a very small cut of a few deals. So my first deal actually was with a gentleman named Robert, who had managed $1 billion portfolio, was syndicating deals. I liked how conservative he was. And so I did 2 deals with him who ended up being home runs. Those deals ended up being home runs for my investors. I really didn't make almost any money on those deals. I brought him investors. I helped him with due diligence. I just said, let me freaking learn. And I want to know what not to do, because I really don't want to make those mistakes when I'm the one making the decisions and raising all the money.
Yeah.
And so I really encourage people to learn on other people's dime and bring massive value to others. So those are the first 2 deals I did that are not mine. I don't get to make decisions. I have no really ownership in those deals, but a huge learning curve was skipped because I did those deals.
Dude, you said a lot there that I want to unpack. And it's interesting to me that we're talking about multifamily, doing, you know, hotel deals, apartment deals. But a lot of what you said is the same thing that I say when I'm speaking at a RIA to someone who wants to get into house flipping, you know. So first and foremost, it took you a year to get your first deal.
Yep.
To get my first flip, it was 94 offers in a year.
Jeez.
And what we did was went to the Free Guru workshop, went to SLRIA, the local real estate investors group, found some guys that were flipping houses, asked if we could go walk the jobs, look at them, see where they got the deal, how they funded it, share all the numbers, and really get in the environment. So a lot of the stuff that I'm telling you guys on my podcast, on my social media every day, like get in the environment where what you want to do is actually happening. And like Sam's sitting here, extremely successful, 1,635 doors in 4 years following this same process. So a lot of these principles, whether you're doing, no matter what it is you're doing, they apply to it.
Well, here's the thing, man. Like, you're talking about paying for an education. You go to SLRIA, you go to hang out with these people that are actually doing it. It's crazy that people will pay for a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
For something that they probably won't even work in. They'll pay tons of money, or they'll go to med school, but they won't pay the price to get an education in something that could be way more profitable. So my price that I paid was raising money for free and doing work for free for these couple deals.
Yeah.
And that's the price I paid for a year. And you know, I had already done commercial, small commercial and real estate for 10 years before that. So I didn't have to pay as big of a price up front. But it's crazy to me that these newbies in the business, they'll put in a month, they'll put in a few weeks, they'll put in a few offers, and they're like, well, shoot, this sucks. It's like, well, how long did you have to go to school to get your bachelor's? 4 years. Why wouldn't you pay the price to do commercial real estate, to do multifamily? Because it's freaking crazy profitable. Yeah. But people won't pay the price.
It's because Instagram didn't let them know that's part of the deal. Like, that's not how you end up with all this stuff, you know. But a couple other things you said there that I think are really important. So doing deals with other people who are seasoned, you know, so essentially you're kind of bird dogging, or you're bringing money, you're bringing value to someone who is capable of fully executing on a deal. And I think what's so awesome and powerful about that is there's a huge sense of safety there. Because you're not doing it on your own. Maybe you're getting a part of the deal, you're getting some action, or you're just, you know, tagging along and learning, like you said. But for me, I think, you know, when you're doing something new, especially if you're getting into real estate, or you're going into like doing these big multifamily deals, you're buying a hotel, that's really scary and really intimidating. And if you don't have the experience, I think that's emotionally going to get in your way a little bit. So when you can remove the fear of being scared about the deal because you don't know what you're doing, and you can be excited that you're working under someone who does, I think it opens the door for you to truly learn. Plus, you're going to build a relationship with that person because you're bringing them value. They're making money. So they're not only are you going to learn on that deal, but it's likely you could call that guy at any time with a question and he's going to answer the phone because you've brought value to him. But not only that, he sees that you're newer in something and you're actually out there doing it. And in my experience, when I see people who are where I once was doing the shit that I was doing, it makes me want to help them. Like, I reach out and I offer to help them. Here's my cell phone. You call me anytime. And I have several guys that I'm mentoring right now because I see the young, hungry version of me in them. And it's kind of that whole paying it back thing. But the mentor thing is really big. The other thing you said too was don't be greedy. So I've heard the saying, would you rather have a piece of a watermelon or would you rather have an entire grape? And that's kind of what you're talking about. And you're talking about, you know, the guy's 100 doors versus, you know, your portfolio of, you know, just under 2,000 doors, and the difference in what the numbers look like. But not only do I think it's more profitable there, but also I think it's a lot more secure too. The more that I do things, I see these bigger deals, I actually think they're safer and more secure, both for the operator and the investors. Would you agree with that? No,
you're exactly right. And, you know, we did our hotel deal. We tripled our money, but it was a shit ton of work. It was so much work. I was telling you earlier, we had lunch earlier, and I was driving to Farmington, New Mexico.
Was that deal in Farmington?
Yeah, that was Farmington. 96 doors, tripled our money. And we killed it, but we realized a few things. We won't do tertiary markets anymore because it's hard to find good management and labor.
I'm in the middle of learning that right now, dude. I was telling you about it.
Yeah, it sucks. And you got to travel, and it's hard to get to those tertiary markets. And we won't do small deals anymore because it actually takes the same amount or more time. It's harder to get loans for small deals than it is bigger deals because the banks understand it. They want, if there's 300 doors and there's a few vacancies, you can't feel it. Mm-hmm. There's 18 doors, like on our Florida deal right now, and there's 2 vacancies. You feel it a lot. Now we're selling our Florida deal. It's going to be hugely profitable, which is great. We'll never do one like that again.
Yeah, I want to add something to that when you're talking about size. So I was sharing with you, I've got this 40 unit in Texas and in a sub market, and it's just been 2 years of straight hell on this thing. But when you have scale and size, you don't notice the vacancies as much as you're saying, but also you can afford to have on-site management. You can afford to have on-site maintenance guys, which allows things to just roll smoother. You have eyes, someone's at the property all the time. You can keep your costs down. So that was just one thing that I wanted to add to that.
Yeah, even within larger properties. So like our property in Dallas, 127 doors. Setting records every month for rent collections, and expenses come up. And the other big thing is when unexpected repairs come up, it's a lot easier to spread that over 127 doors than 27 doors. But what we found is that deal requires the same amount of manpower as our 160 door deal in a different city and the 200 door deal in a different city. So if you look at payroll, it's the same across those 3 properties. Mm-hmm. I can manage the same with the same amount of people and payroll as I can with 200 doors. It's 127. So look at a profitability per door. It's way higher on the other deals. And that was kind of a light bulb that went off for us. It's like, oh, we need to target 200 and bigger. Yeah. And in between 200 and 300, there, you have to add another person. And so when do I have to add that another person? I want to push the number of doors as high as possible with as few personnel as possible. Yeah. And anyways, we won't do small deals anymore. It just does not make sense for our time. We've done a few of them. They're so much safer. The bigger you go, you get better loans. Everything's better when you go bigger.
What's interesting is you've heard that before you actually experienced it. Mm-hmm. I've heard it too, but it's interesting that you have to go through it and actually experience it. And then you're like, oh, this is why the guys say bigger deals are better. They're safer. They're easier to do. It's easier to raise the money. But I think that mindset transition, when you're not used to doing stuff like that, you just don't think that that's real. But a couple things, One thing that I like to say when I'm speaking, especially on real estate, everyone likes to talk about you make your money when you buy. And that's true. You do make your money when you buy, but you keep your money when you execute. Yeah. And one thing that I think is grossly underlooked, especially in these multifamily deals, and this is from my experience, but even if you're doing flips or whatever, is the management piece. So you keep your money when you execute. So like you're doing deals in multiple different markets, you're transitioning into doing bigger deals. You hear the saying that multifamily or commercial is a team sport. There's not a whole lot of guys doing that shit by themselves. Right. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And if you don't have the right systems and the right team in place, you're going to get your butt kicked. So what, for lack of a better term, there's a few systems that I think we've learned over the last couple of years. We've had to fire multiple property managers. You were telling me you did early as well. Right now, we have a weekly meeting with every property manager.
Let me, just so we can bring some clarity to everyone who's listening. When you say what does your team look like?
Yeah, so I have 6 employees, and then I have my partner, Lyndon.
Okay.
And on a couple of the deals, we have another partnership group. Like in Cleveland, we have Jason and Jens. They're also general partners with us on those deals. They're boots on the ground. And on one of the Texas deals, we have a boots on the ground. And the Florida deal. So, but I control everything. So the way I've structured my deals is I've got to be the backstop. That's the only way I'll do a deal these days.
Is this you personally, or you and your primary partner, Lyndon?
So I do operations. He's my CFO.
Okay.
He does fine. He's on most of the calls. Okay. He's a really good partner, really good at Overwatch, but his main focus is financials. My focus is operations and money raising.
Well, and that's part of the whole team sport and like, what's your strength? So you're good at what you just said, operations and money raising.
And he has a master's in corporate finance. Mm-hmm. Like I hate looking at P&Ls. Yeah. And they drive me nuts. And he's picking them apart, getting reports from the property managers and holding them accountable. But yeah, you've got to have a really good team. He can't raise money super well. And I really can't do the finance side super well. We're a really good match. I'm kind of a get in your face, get shit done, or get the fuck out. Yeah. And he's like super nice and hugs everyone. And you know, so it's a really good yin and yang type of a match. And it's worked out really well. And now we have systems in place that just over the last 2 years, we've learned massive accountability. So on his finance side, massive accountability for the bookkeepers. We actually I want to give a plug for a new software called Clockwork.
Clockwork?
So it's an accounting software. It speaks to your bookkeeping software.
Okay.
And it can show you metrics like, hey, different expenses that came in this week. Like we had a once in a 40-year storm in Cleveland on Christmas Day, and it crushed us. And we can see all the metrics and everything that's going on. But I would say back to what I'm doing as the operator, bigger is better, and absolute accountability to everything is important. So the property manager for Terrace Hill right now, we kind of struggled with occupancy last fall as the market slowed a little bit. Every single week, 24 hours before I meet with them, they send me every detail of what's going on, how many leads came in, how many contracts were signed, what rent was at, what concessions they gave. And if we hadn't been paying attention to those numbers last fall, we'd be not in the best situation right now. But we saw numbers changing. We gave incentives. We kind of dipped to 90% occupancy, back up to 95%. And that's where you see a lot of inexperienced operators. They kind of just let the property manager do their thing. And the magic words are trust but verify, and then re-verify, and then re-verify, and ask really good questions.
I want to unpack that too, because the management piece is huge. And I was telling you, with this 40 unit we're on our 4th set of management now, and we're just going to take it over and run it ourselves. Yeah. My one partner's in Missouri, I'm in Utah, and we're just going to do this thing. And I'm extremely confident we'll do a better job. But the saying, if you have to manage the manager, and what you're talking about, the classic, you know, you think you hire property management, put them in place, and then you can just trust that they're going to do what they're going to do. And that's what we did initially on this 40 unit. We closed on it New Year's Eve. And then in July, I'm getting a call from the city, like code enforcement. And I don't even know how they got my cell phone number, dude. So, you know, Angleton, Texas, city code enforcement's calling me, and she's like, yeah, is this Michael Burns? I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, who is this? And how did you get my phone number regarding this property? Which I still don't know. But she's like, the water bill hasn't been paid. We're going to turn the water off, and that's illegal. You've got, you know, all these tenants here. And I'm like, what? The water bill hasn't been paid? And then so immediately I'm like, okay, let me call you right back. First thing I do is call my buddy who's running the deal, right? And he just kind of set it and forget it with the management company. So I fly out, then this is in the afternoon. I'm on the next flight, first flight out of Salt Lake to Houston the next day. Dude, I show up on site. The grass is 18.
How long is the drive from Houston?
An hour.
Don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, no, right? that's a good side note.
Sorry, I had to interrupt.
What do you call that market?
That's a tertiary market.
A tertiary market.
It's not a primary market. It's not a secondary market. It's tertiary. You got to drive an hour to an airport.
It's a fucking bad deal. Inconvenient location and location has been our only issue. Like if this thing was anywhere within 20 minutes of, you know, like you talk about 1 million people, management wouldn't be a big deal. Yeah. But it's because it's an hour out of a major city, we've really struggled with management and all the things. But anyways, I show up, 18 inches of grass. The pool has algae everywhere. Nobody's on site. All the utilities are back due 3 and 4 months. And dude, this company had only been managing the asset for like 7 months. Yeah. So that was a huge eye-opener for me. I ended up taking over the deal and we're working on it. But talk about because you're in multiple markets, right? You got shit in Cleveland, you got stuff in Texas, New Mexico, probably some Southeast, Florida. Yeah. So you're all over the place. What's that process been like? Obviously, you've learned what you need to do, but how do you go about managing different properties and different marketplaces and figuring out and navigating that whole thing?
Yeah, my favorite tip is from Kevin Bupp. He's got a fund for mobile home parks. He actually does parking structures as well, but he's been doing this a long time. Back before, really Google Drive and Dropbox got really big, he would just pay someone to drive by the property, take pictures, and they'd mail the SIM card, or the memory card to him. He'd look at the pictures and say, oh shit, there's 18 inches of grass.
Yeah.
Now it's really freaking easy. Find someone in that market to FaceTime you with your phone, record it, or now I do Zoom and I record it and I ask my property manager what's going on, and they give me an answer, and then I just have someone unknown to them,
just a random third party,
go secret shop the property. And so we recently we just fired our property manager in El Paso for one of the properties. They weren't opening the office, and we were at like 89% occupancy. The profitability between 89% occupancy and 95 is massive, because your expenses are paid by that first 90% of occupancy. So all of our profit was just being eaten away by this guy not opening the office every day.
Well, in addition to that, for you guys who don't quite understand commercial and multifamily, the way you value those properties is based on how much income the asset produces. So when you're talking the income, especially you're talking NOI income, net operating income, for you guys who aren't familiar with that, what is the property making from 89 to 95, 98%.
Yep.
That could potentially affect the value of a building like $250,000, $500,000 on a big deal, right?
Absolutely. And we were looking to sell. We're not going to sell it now because we're turning it around. But to give you an idea, gross rents on that property were averaging $130,000. But we should have been at 140 plus. And the answer, and this is why I hate set it and forget it. We weren't, we were on them. So we felt like we were doing a good job managing these managers, but something wasn't right. And I have weekly calls with my team. I have daily calls with my team. So we started secret shopping this property, sending people over 11 a.m. in the morning, 9 a.m. in the morning, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, multiple days it would be open, and then also multiple days it'd be closed. So if I'm a prospective renter, we have leads going in there to rent units and no one's there.
But in your mind, management's telling you, yeah, we've got someone on site.
Yeah. Oh, we have no idea why we're at 90% occupancy when my neighbor's 98% occupied. Yeah. That's the part that hurts.
So a property manager's
96% occupied.
So a property manager was lying to you.
Yeah.
Imagine
and
that.
They're a reputable company.
Yeah.
And guess what? They didn't know either. So they weren't lying to us.
Really? Okay.
They didn't know their on-site guy wasn't opening the office. That's the worst part, is they didn't have the measures in place to make sure he was doing his job. Okay. He's a good dude. I like the dude. He doesn't work for us anymore, but he got lazy. Yeah. Got tired. He actually has some health issues. He's a legitimate reason not to show up some days, but we need occupancy. He's hired to do a job. And so, massive accountability, secret shopping, weekly reports are really important, paying attention to the numbers. And, I think the set it and forget it mentality is what's getting people into trouble right now. So we're seeing deals come to market of properties that were just cruising the last few years. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden there's a dip in the market, but they're used to not paying attention to numbers. And all of a sudden they're like, holy shit. Well, I'm not making any money. What's going on?
And the thing on these larger deals, dude, it's like when you're doing smaller deals or single family, it's like driving a speedboat, right? You can make quick turns faster, but when you're doing these larger deals, it's like turning a fucking yacht around. Yeah. You're not going to just U-turn it. It takes time.
Yeah. So another good example is my partner in Cleveland got really behind on the remodel process. Crews were really tough to find, supply chain issues, blah, 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 blah. Lots of reasons why it didn't go as planned, but we got back involved this summer. I'm supposed to be the money raiser, not the operations guy. Now I'm operations over everything, even in Cleveland. And we got back involved and realized there was units just sitting, not rented. And it took us 6 months to turn that property around. Now we've turned the corner. We're almost to 90% occupancy, but we went way down. And you can't just find 50 renters out of thin air. No. We needed 60.
Well, and so probably had to be given sweet deals.
Well, and here's the problem. People still move out. Yeah. So you're finding all these renters running specials and just busting your ass to get renters in there. And there's people still moving out every month because that's what happens on multifamily.
And then you got to do make readies and put more capital into the property.
So course corrections, like you said, are not so simple. You have to pay attention weekly. And luckily, all of our properties right now have come up in value. They're doing great. A couple of them we're suspending cash flow because we're being smart and conservative because we had these once in a 40-year storm in Cleveland and some just crazy market conditions. But I can't imagine being someone who maybe wasn't as careful buying their property and is a set it and forget it type operator.
With limited experience, there's a lot of that going on right now.
With this market conditions, the people aren't moving as much. The inflation has really put the squeeze on renters, and that's what we didn't count on. I've never seen inflation like this. I know you haven't. You're my age.
We didn't count on the inflation, but we also didn't count on interest rates doubling. Maybe not so much in the commercial world, but like when you're doing these value add deals, you're essentially flipping an apartment complex. It's a 12 to 24 month process, depending on size. And you underwrite it thinking you're going to get a rate at 3.5, and then all of a sudden you're looking at rates that are 5, 5.5, 6.
Yep.
And you have more, conservative underwriting guidelines. There's a lot can happen on those, those deals. So I think there's going to, we were talking at lunch, I think there's a lot of deals that are value add multifamily deals with people who have limited experience that raised a shitload of money in a good market, and they haven't exited out and refinanced on the back end, and it's like, what's going to happen to those deals? Guys like you are going to come buy them.
I'm excited. I
want to circle back to something because you had talked about when you're first getting going, you were a part of other people's deals. So you wanted to be part of someone else's deals. Maybe this is just an example. You put your money in, you invest, you want to get into multifamily or commercial, whatever. You invest into someone's deal and you kind of ride the coattails and learn through that experience. There's a huge thing, and you said it earlier, but I want everyone, especially if you're not familiar with syndication and when you have these big partnerships, what is the difference of a general partner and a limited partner? A GP or an LP? Because that's a huge thing when you're an investor. You really need to realize, are you a GP or are you an LP? So if you could kind of tell the listeners, what is that?
Yeah, really, really simple breakdown. As an LP, limited investor, limited partner, I don't have any financial responsibility to the property. Or in other words, if it goes under, the bank isn't going to come back to me to pay off the loan. No financial, other than my invested money. So no financial responsibility to the property and no legal liability for the property. Someone slips and falls. If I have a huge net worth, I would probably rather be a limited partner than a general partner. Yeah. Because I can't get sued. Someone slips and falls, I'm completely protected by that LLC of limited partnerships.
So limited partner, you basically are investing money in someone else's deal.
And you also have no decision-making ability.
Okay.
And it's set up that way, and that's the only way I'll do deals is as the decision-making general partner, because I don't mind the liability because I know I'm going to make the right decisions. I've had other partners not make good decisions, and I've had crazy-ass investors make terrible decisions to sell or do things with a property that was not in its best interest. So when you work with Sam Newell, you're only a limited partner. You never get to make a decision. Like right now, we have some investors really unhappy that we have a little bit lower cash flow and they want to sell. And I'm like, guys, like be mature investors, please. This is why you don't get to make decisions because the market's going to come back. Why would you sell now? It's not a good time to sell. Yeah. Our property's doing great. It's cash flowing, not as much as we would like, but it's still cash flowing. And in a few years when the market's going to come back, we'll make a crazy amount of money when it sells. Why would we sell now? So my whole thesis and theory on investing is even when I think I have a good general partner, which we'll get to in a sec, I still have to make the decisions. Yeah. Because maybe I'm just even tempered enough. I don't panic when things get tough. And I don't buy poor deals. And so on the general partner side, that's when all of a sudden you have risk. So you're doing some of the work, you sign on the loan, legal financial responsibility for that deal, and you answer to the limited partners, you answer to the bank, you answer to any legal issues that come up.
So general partners are basically, they're operating the deal, they're finding the deal, they're managing the deal, they're doing everything with management of the asset. Mm-hmm. And then a limited partner is essentially just a silent investor. Yeah. That's all they are. Yep. Cool. Well, I think that clears that up for people. So what do you think are you talked about the advantages of a limited partner, but for you, starting as a limited partner just really gives you the opportunity to be part of a deal. All you have at risk is your money. And you can kind of, from the sidelines or, you know, Monday morning quarterback review, look at the deal as a whole. And it's just, you would say that's a good, and was for you a good learning experience to just kind of get started on something.
Yeah. And, you know, you need to invest and you need to learn. I started doing that at the same time, learning how to underwrite deals and learning how to do due diligence and understanding the deal. And so one of my best examples of someone that's done this really well is Tien. She was my partner on some of our deals. And she came to me as a student and said, hey, I really want to do deals. She was a pharmacist, had a few of her own investments. So she had invested in a few deals, but we taught her, along with Rod Cleef and other people that helped her, how to underwrite. She brought us Albuquerque, an El Paso deal, a second El Paso deal, and a Dallas deal after kind of that initial learning phase, which made her a lot of money. And so she came in not only as an LP, but as a general partner because she brought massive value. And so I would say do both simultaneously.
Well, and it's a good way to transition into being, you know, an active part of the deal. And then it's part of that education experience that you talked about. So you're getting a return on your money, plus you're getting education and then kind of learning the ropes and how things work.
Absolutely.
Cool.
I would say the biggest challenge for people, though, is they get tired. They get intimidated or they get frustrated that every deal isn't a winner. And so when I say have investing maturity, have maturity as an operator or as your own business owner. You know, it takes time and you can't speed up experience. You can't speed up time.
Yeah. I heard you ever watch the show Ballers? I think it was a TV show I was watching. And the guy says, the only way to have experience is by getting experience. And that's kind of removing an excuse of like, I'm not experienced. Well, the only way to get experience is to like have the experience. Then once you have the experience, and then you actually have experience, if that makes sense. But anyways, I think that's an important piece. So one other thing, you talked about it earlier when you said going into it, you thought money would be an issue. And I think anyone doing any investment deal, even when I was getting going on flips, it's like, well, what if they accept our offer? Like, where am I going to get 180 grand to buy this house in West Valley or whatever it is? So I want to talk about money. And I think these bigger deals require more money down. And I think that even for me too, has been a big mental block. So like, how did you go about like, okay, I'm going to buy, how much was the first deal that you did where you raised money on your own for it? How much money needed to be raised?
So I think $1 million is all. $1 million.
Okay, $1 million.
I was intimidated at the time.
He says $1 million is all.
$1 million.
Yeah, but it's because you came and to finish up the experience thing, like right now, I do a lot of flips and things are going really bad. We talked about it at lunch, and you talk about, and I talk about too, is the number one rule in real estate is you cannot be emotional about it. But that's not something you learn until you've.
Can you say that again so my investors can hear that? Like,
attention, everybody! This is a public service announcement. In real estate deals, business in general, you cannot be emotional.
Real estate always comes back. Don't panic.
And there's the data to show that too. And people, you know, and another thing is you only lose money when it's realized. So it's only a real loss if you sell at the loss. So you want to hold on to your stuff if you know it's coming back. So like,
can I give you an example?
Yeah.
So I have an investor this morning. We got a call. She's just pissed, irate. I'm not investing in this next deal with you, Sam. It's like, okay, great. That's fine. And she's like, well, I want you to sell the properties we're in. I want my money out. And I'm like, even if I was willing to buy you out right now, I would tell you not to, because the market's doing this. Why the hell would you pull your money out now? That's ridiculous. Well, she's frustrated. She's really frustrated. And I'm looking at our 10-year prospectus for the property. And I actually just did a big investor dinner in Vegas. And I said, it's performing almost exactly where we said it would. Yes, I would like it to be more. But let's get out of this trough and let's ride this wave back up. If you can hold on and not be frustrated for a few more years, you're going to make about an 18% average annual return. And I said, is that a good return? She goes, yeah, but it's, I'm like, no, just answer the freaking question. Is that a good return? She's like, yeah. I'm like, no, it's not. That's a fantastic freaking return.
Yeah, because what's the bank paying on a CD? Maybe 2%.
Yeah. What are you getting what are you getting in your savings account? What are you getting in the stock market right now? And by the way, did you have money in crypto? She's like, yeah. Like, then shut the hell up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, seriously, like, I have investors that have money in crypto, the stock market, and they're panicking and they're frustrated about our deals that are still doing really great value-wise, still cash flowing. So be mature and less emotional and understand. And for the listeners that are looking at deals, if you buy a deal and it can't get through one of these troughs, don't freaking buy it. Or if you're looking at buying a deal, don't buy it. My best story is an Atlanta deal that I wanted so bad. And it was going to make me a lot of money. And it could have been, it was a sexy, sexy deal, like 300 something doors. But when we stress tested it, when we recession tested it, it was going to be too thin during some type of recession.
Well, there's a couple things.
We didn't buy it.
Yeah, there's a couple of things you said that in Atlanta, I'm not a fan of Atlanta because the one time I've done a flip out of state, it was in Atlanta. 16 months later, 3 air conditioner units later, and like a $50,000 loss. We finally got out of the deal. So side note to Atlanta. But the thing about experience and about understanding that you can't be emotional in it is that's not something you can read in a book. Mm-hmm. It's not something that you can go to a seminar for. It's something that you have to live and experience and go through. And that, again, is why having someone who's more seasoned than you and that's further down the road kind of under their wing, it can really help you, especially if you get yourself caught in a shifting market, because these investors that you have, they were winning and kicking ass when the market's been great for the last 6 years. Everything is going up. Them. Yeah. And I say, you know, like I was speaking at an event in Florida last week, and one of my favorite slides that I had, I said, winning is easy. Losing is a separator. Because like winning is easy, man. Like when you're winning and then people expect it, and then you have people that are new and they get in at a good time, whether they're an operator or they're an investor or whatever, and they think they're the world's smartest fucking person because they're winning while things are the greatest they've ever been. And then it's like you get a little bit of like this lady, they was just performing the way that you underwrote it. Conservative underwriting, it's literally hitting the numbers that you underwrote it at, but they're used to this, and now she's freaking out wanting to sell. But you cannot get that experience without having it.
Right. Right. And what really helps is understanding the numbers. And so when I ran her through those numbers, it's like, well, if I didn't know the numbers and I didn't know my deals and know my deals were going to be fine during this really shitty market, I'd probably be panicking with her. Yeah. But I was able to say, hey, you know, here's this worst case scenario. We're going to be just fine. Under no circumstance are we going to lose this deal to the bank. Under no circumstance are we going to negative cash flow and have this turn into a risky, shitty deal. So I don't feel bad. I'm not panicking. I'm really excited that knowing that someday this property is going to come back up. And I think there's a lot of people that they look at the deal and they really want to do the deal. And unless the market stays good or unless that deal performs perfectly, they're going to be in trouble. And that was a lot of people these last few years.
Well, that's the second. So when I talk about my rules of real estate, the first one is you can't be emotional. And the second one is you have to be honest with yourself. Because if you give you a deal, you know, multifamily or even me on a flip, like I can make something look like a deal on paper all day long. Like, you know, maybe the ARV is 400,000 or, you know, 4 million in your case, whatever it is. And it's easy to say, yeah, but I bet we could stretch value a little high. And then here's our rehab costs. I bet we could cut it down a little low. So now you're sitting here like going high on the value and low on the rehab. And then what happens is even if you hit your numbers, what they should have been, you're losing money, but it's likely that your rehab's going high. So now you're going the other way real quick. And it's really easy to do that. I think on the deals that you're doing, because banks are involved and there's more money involved in underwriting, it's not just a hard money guy, you know, your uncle giving you 150 grand or whatever to buy a flip. It's probably a little more backstops in place for the financing.
Not as much as you would think.
You don't think so?
Dude, it's scary. And I think we're going to see it. So fast forward 6 months, let's have another conversation about this. But banks have their underwriting, but they don't know how much money you're actually going to spend in which areas. They can't really control all of that. They can't control your operations.
Well, and they're just reading the data that you give them, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're good at this to a point. But I mean, the Atlanta deal, we would have been sunk. And the bank was willing to give us the loan. And you know, it's really scary, the deals people do. So I don't know. Let's fast forward 6 months. I think a lot of deals are going to hit the market where people sold something to the bank, their pro forma, their analysis, sold something to themselves saying, I really want to do this deal.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've had some really frustrated underwriters and partners because I'm like, okay, here's the deal. Looks good. How can we make it worse, but realistically, but worse? So what my rule of thumb is, okay, if we have another 2008 to 10 scenario where we just absolutely values plummet, cash flow plummets, how bad would it get for us on this deal? And if that deal can't pay for itself and stay afloat, we don't do the deal. And that pisses a lot of underwriters off. They're like, it's never going to be that bad again.
And just to add, so that's what you call stress testing.
Stress testing or recession testing the deal.
You want to run a worst case scenario and see if it's still going to be able to support itself and cover the debt.
For example, there's a deal right now that isn't really cash flowing very well. We had to fire a property manager. But we have 10-year debt on that deal at 3.7% interest, 7 years interest only.
Yeah,
I'm not freaking worried about it. Like it's a great deal. We're improving it and it's going to cash flow and it's going to be fine. So why would we sell? The other deal right now that we're struggling with is Cleveland, the 187 doors I was telling you about. There was so much upside in that deal that even if rates doubled or tripled, and they did triple. That's the crazy thing, is we ran those tests. They did triple. We're still going to refi here in the next couple months and cash flow positive. Whereas these other deals we're looking at, they would have never. And so I'm the opposite. I'm like it's funny. I hired a business coach through EOS. You've heard of EOS,
Traction.
Right? Yeah, Traction. Really good business coach. And he had me do my personality testing and everything. And he's like, oh, wow, Sam, you scored the lowest on risk. I'm like, I fucking hate gambling. I hate losing money. I hate not knowing exactly what's going to happen. I hate the unknown. He's like, yeah, I can tell. He's like, I'm going to invest with you because you hate risk.
So I want to nail on that for a minute though. So if you're listening and you've thought about like, this is an ideal, I'm not ever going to bring you guys, anyone on my show. You know how much I care about, you know, the core values and integrity and being an expert at your craft and ethics and all of that stuff. But this is the type of individual that you want to put your money with. He's trying to kill deals. He's not trying to sell anybody a deal.
Exactly.
He's trying to fucking kill the deal. And that comes through experience. But what's going to be interesting is this lady who's freaking out and wants her money back. She is actually going to get the experience that you have. She just hasn't had it yet. And it'll be interesting to watch her change her tune because she's going to.
I'm so interested to see when we sell it in the next few years, when I send her a really nice checking. Because whenever I send people money, it's like, here's your money, but also here's your rate of return.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be a little bit of arrogance involved in saying, here's your money. Are you still mad? Like, are you still mad? But if we had sold when she wanted to, it would have been like, yeah, shitty deal. We lost a bunch of money. We're not going to sell while it's low.
But there's a lot of things that have put you in that position and the way that you're operating. And I'm glad we're having this conversation because you have the experience with it, but so you also have the mindset around it and keeping calm and staying cool. And you can have the confidence to look her along with all your other investors in the eye at that dinner in Vegas because you know the way that you underwrote the deal. You know that you stress test it to the max.
We have this conversation all the time with my partner. Michael is one of I actually brought him on as a board member, and Lyndon. It's like, can you imagine if you had taken unnecessary risks and now we're in this current market?
Well, and how much easier is it to confidently raise money or take people's money when you know in your heart of hearts and you can sleep well at night that this is a good deal because you've been conservative about it? Because I know when you're confident in what you're doing or you're confident in the deal, it's super easy to raise money or ask other people to get involved because you know, versus if you don't. I think there's a huge difference there, but also the people can sense it and they can feel it.
Yeah, I've never lost money on a deal. You and I know this guy.
Well, let's time out. I'm gonna knock on wood with you for that.
Okay.
Never lost money on a deal.
Never lost, and I never plan to because I don't buy deals that you can lose money on. I just won't. Now, maybe I'll lose money on a personal flip in the future. I still never have, but I don't do a lot of flips. Yeah, I've just done 3 or 4 a year. But you and I know a guy who does really good social media marketing, looks like a baller, has bought huge houses. I think he bought a small island somewhere, but he's losing investors' money and he's lost a couple deals to the bank. And I just, as a person, never want to be able to, or never want to be in the position to tell someone I lost your money or you're not going to make money at all. I actually had a firm come to me a year ago and they said, Sam, we like what you've done. We're going to commit $100 million to you and your company. Go find us a bunch of deals. The one thing we never want to see is you can make less money than planned. We're mature investors. We understand that. You can have challenges come up. The market can shift. That's okay. We just never want to be at risk of losing money. That's Warren Buffett's number one thing in multifamily. Now flips, that's a different business plan. You're always going to lose money flipping homes.
It's a high risk deal for sure.
It's super high risk. You do 15 flips, 1 or 2 of them are going to lose money. Yeah. That's part of your business. Overall, you're not losing money in the business though, because you've made a profit. On multifamily, I will never lose money. And that was their number one rule. I just signed on a new firm that said, Sam, we have $75 million coming. We want to fund you. We just have to know you're never going to lose money.
Well, I heard an older guy, I forget where it was at one time, but he was like, hey, return on your capital is awesome. He's like, but I'm first and foremost concerned about return of capital. Yeah. And then we can talk about what's the return on it, but let's just make sure we're getting the money back. And I always thought that was one thing that stuck with me, so I wanted to interject.
My friend Michael, he's like, I'm a coward with my money. Yeah. I know how hard it is to make it. I never want to be at risk of losing it.
And that's what I think is really important about a seasoned investor, someone who's a seasoned partner, like general partner like you, is like there's just so much there around the maturity of it, the seasoning of it. That's not something you just walk into. It's earned over time, and you just can't shortcut that. And I think in real estate, it's such a thing like this, and you have so many outside variable factors that you have to not only stress test deals, dude, but you have to stress test yourself. Like you have to be able to weather a storm. Yeah. You really do.
Put the systems in place. Yeah. I mean, right now we're focusing on systems. So I went from really head money raiser, hoping to offload the system side of my business to a COO. I hired one, didn't work out, tried to have my partner do it, didn't work out. And what I'm realizing is if I want to be this anti-risk guy, I have to set up my partners and I with all of the answers and systems to make sure that happens.
What's interesting about that, and I had this thought earlier, but I didn't say it because I was listening to you, but I think a lot of people think that especially when the market's hot, that you have to roll it. And I do this on flips all the time too. Flipping's a different model, but it's like, I have to do a risky deal because there's no other deals. There's not good deals in a hot market.
Gotta keep the wheels churning.
Yeah. And I got to keep investor money out. I got to keep my guys going. I got to keep momentum going, and they'll slip and they'll make bad decisions and bad calls. So I really want to point out that you've got your rules that you invest by, you've got your systems, and this is just what works for us. We stress test every deal. And even though you're being conservative and you're being super loyal to yourself and being honest about these numbers, even with all of that said, you're still able to stack 1,635 doors in 4 years. So you can be a conservative investor in an extremely aggressive market and still kick ass and be getting deals done. I think that's really important to point out, because you see so many people doing bad deals because they think they have to.
Yeah, or they really want to. Yeah. There's a lot of money, and we've made a lot of money. My company's made 7 figures, and it's been fun. And, if I hadn't been as conservative, I probably would be at 3,000 or 4,000 doors right now. And some of those deals probably would have made a bunch of money. And I know for sure I passed up deals that sold a year later. Actually, one here in Ogden, passed it up at 15 million. I felt like, if the market changed, it was a little too risky. They sold it a year later for 19. They made a quick $4 million. Who knows? The guy that bought it for 19 though probably isn't doing so hot right now.
Dude, the Ogden market's getting hammered.
But I know for sure I passed up $4 million of profit, but it just wasn't worth the risk for me.
Yeah,
because I'm a long-term holder. So I don't know. It's I know it's this back and forth with me all the time. I see my contemporaries, these other people doing deals, and they're doing 2-3 times the business as I am. But I've never lost a deal to the bank. They have. I've never told investors I lost their money. They've had to.
Yeah, and I think that's another part of investing is you have to have your rules, you know, so be clear on what type of investor are you, but also more than that, what's your risk tolerance? Because again, winning is easy, right? But like if you're investing money, truly you should be okay losing the money. I think real estate's the safest asset that you're you know, to not lose money in. But another question I wanted to ask you is, I want to talk about the lifestyle of multifamily, doing what you're doing, apartment deals. You got all these different markets. You're doing these large deals, big rehabs going on, raising money, all the different things, managing the managers. Talk about the lifestyle difference, because I think that's, you know, scale and the money and the equity is the one, you know, probably the driving reason that a lot of guys want to do the bigger deals and make the transition.
Right.
But I want to talk about the lifestyle piece too. Like how is your lifestyle different? And when I say lifestyle, it's not about money. I'm talking about the entire experience that you have as life, you know, relationships, money, health and fitness, spiritual, self-development. Yeah. You love fly fishing, the stuff you do for fun. What's that been like versus going and showing homes at the drop of a dime when a client calls you and they want to see this townhome at 8:30 at night and it's Sunday? Yeah.
My best friend texted me today to see a house and I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, yeah, I didn't love showing houses. But yeah, to talk about lifestyle, let's talk about my goals, which I get really excited about. My goal is to have $1 billion under management by 2029. I think I'll get there sooner, but I'm okay if I don't.
So 2029, so 6 years, you're at 200 million now. So you want a 5X in 6 years. I think you can do it, dude. Because you know why? Because you have the systems and processes in place and you have the experience in place. But now you've got $50 million worth of investors that have been making good, safe, consistent returns, and they have more money and they also have friends and family.
And now I have fun saying, here's $100 million. Yeah. It's a lot easier when someone gives you 100 million than raising 100,000 at a time.
But let's talk about that, because you don't just have funds wanting to give you 100 million. And you told me you had another dude that was interested in placing 120 with you when we were at lunch. Yeah. And I asked you that question earlier about the raising money piece, because I think if you were to put 10 out of 10 people in a room and ask them their biggest concern about buying a 150 unit apartment complex, every single one of them's top concern would probably be the money. Yeah. So how did you go from raising $1 million from your first deal to like now raising whatever your biggest raise is on your largest purchase? Because that's a totally different deal than going and getting hard money or private money for a flip, because these, number one, you're probably getting them a lower investment return. You're asking them to tie up their money for a lot longer than 6 months. Yep. So what was that process like with raising money? Like what would your tips be for people on raising money, and just your whole experience with starting from green, I need $1 million to close this deal, to now you've got funds wanting to give you in excess of $100 million, and you've done that in 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, I was really intimidated to do my Albuquerque deal. The hotel I just bought with my own money with my partner. I actually didn't let my investors jump in that deal, and they were pissed because we 3x'd our money in less than a year. We ended up selling it because somebody wanted it. We turned the operations around. But anyways, I was really intimidated for Albuquerque, this little 30-unit deal for $1 million, including rehab. I had to raise like just under $1 million. And I was really intimidated. In my next 3 deals, I raised another like $20 million 2 months later. I had 3 more deals that closed. That one closed October, and then those 3 closed in December.
So in October, you're stressed about raising $1 million, and then in December, you're now stressed about raising $20 million.
Yeah. So here's what I did though, and this is what I'm getting to, is it's 10,000 hours. I forget the name of that book. You got to do something 10,000 hours to actually perfect it, to be an expert. And
try and be a little tactical on this answer though, for like someone who's like, how do I raise money?
So here's what I did is I knew I needed to get good at having that conversation of, Michael Burns, I want your money. And you're going to ask me, why the hell would I give you money? And if I just say, well, it's a good deal and I think it's going to make money, you're going to be like, okay, well, can I get some details? I learned early on in my real estate career working with investors, if I can answer every question you have before you have it, and then give you questions you should ask me, and I tell you, hey, you probably should have asked me this question, Michael, and you're like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I probably should ask you that question. So what I did is 6 months before I started raising money for Albuquerque, I was in a deal in Cincinnati with this other partner who I was just minority guy, but I did webinars. I pitched the deal to everyone I possibly could. I asked their opinion, and I got really freaking good at pitching a deal, answering questions, and figuring out what investors wanted to hear. And so 6 months before I ever needed the Albuquerque money. So by the time Albuquerque came around, I was intimidated, but very good at pitching the deal. And I knew every detail of the deal. I knew it backward to forward.
Real quick, I want to insert something. So you were they say the best time to raise money is when you don't need it.
You don't need it.
So you were raising money for 6 months prior to actually needing to raise money for real.
I pitched fake deals. Like I pitched a deal that I had submitted an offer on that I really wanted to buy. And I pitched it to my investors like, hey, we may get this deal. What do you think? And I kind of knew that we would never get the deal because someone outbid us.
But think about that. I want to stop and like you like, cause it's hard, dude. It takes balls. It takes.
Hold on really quick. You know what's crazy is I offer this to my students. I say, hey, Michael, I've got this deal. It's sexy as fuck. Like it's so nice. Why don't you pitch it to your investors for practice? And they're like, oh, I don't know. Like, it's like, okay, you obviously don't want this.
That's the separator.
I know this is a good deal. I have it. I'm just giving you free practice, and I'll do it with you.
Yeah.
And I rarely have anyone take me up on it.
And it's because that's the fear piece. No matter what it is, a thing, I think there's always fear or a limiting belief or mindset that gets in the way of actually doing something. And it's around the money part, which I
can't get them to take action. I don't know what it is.
But really listen to that, guys. This dude is pitching deals, fake deals, or deals that he has offers or LOIs on, letters of intent on, and he's doing it before he actually needed it. And I talk about stay ready, right? Like, have you done the things that you need to do to be prepared for God to even give you the next step? Like, are you even ready for the next step?
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't, you got to do that groundwork and you got to be ready. Ed Milet, you know who that is? I heard him speak at his book launch a couple months ago at his house. And he said, guys, I'm just a below average guy whose life is made up on a handful of moments that I capitalized on because I was ready. Nice. And this dude's worth almost $1 billion, and it's because he was ready. So you've been getting ready, you're working with the guy for free for the deals. You've been spending a year on it. You've been raising money, kind of trying to raise money, fake deals for 6 months, and you've been doing all the shit. And then Albuquerque pops up and you're ready to roll because you've been doing it. I really want everyone to listen to that and pay attention to that. It's like, are you ready to actually execute on the thing it is that you say you want to do?
You learn from experience. We talked about that earlier. You have to get the experience. And I attended other people's money raising. I had some money to invest. I went to Grant Cardone's webinars, saw how he pitched deals, all these other people, and just learned and learned and learned. Then I practiced. I made my business partner practice with me. I practiced on my wife at the time. I practiced on my dad, on my sister. And, I learned early on as a real estate agent, and this is why I think I was successful as a realtor. I went to my first broker and I'm like, do you just have like a script and like a process I can follow? I know somebody smarter than me has figured this out. I just want to do what they do. Yeah. I don't have to go figure it out. And then I'm going to do it every day. And I wrote my script out every single morning, and I practiced, role played, and it was every day, 7 a.m. to 8, then 8 a.m. to noon, I cold called. And I got so freaking good at cold calling and so good with my scripts and my pitches, but I put in the time and the effort to get really good. And I just followed a system. And so with multifamily, I did the same thing. I said, Rod Cleef, Robert, you guys, what are your systems? What do you do? And then I'm going to go all in, and I'm going to spend an hour, 2 hours a day making sure I perfect my craft at raising money. So fast forward, Albuquerque, we close it, no problem. We actually overfunded Albuquerque, tiny little raise. Then I had to raise $20 million all at the same time. And my wife hit me with a divorce, walked out on me and the kids. And I still had to raise the $20 million or we'd lose. We had $1.5 million in non-refundable earnest money, December 2020. She walked out the day before Thanksgiving. She was done. Didn't want to be a mom. Didn't want to be a wife anymore. And I'm like, shit, I got to go raise money. Good thing I practiced this and had the investors lined up. I had been lining my investors up for a year talking about deals. I had my podcast going. I had lots of things going for me that were helping reach out to my sphere of influence to pitch them deals and talk to them about multifamily. So then when these deals finally did come up, even though I was going through a crazy divorce, fighting for my kids, making sure they were okay, moving out of my house and make sure my kids were safe, we raised the $20 million. We closed. You said you closed one on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve.
We closed one on the 30th of December and one on the 31st of December. And it was insane. It was the most insane thing I've ever done. I was literally MIA. I was just with my kids trying to console them and be with them all of December. And I really, it's kind of brings some chills in. But I raised money until like 7 p.m. on Christmas Eve. The bank hit us with, hey, we need another $1 million. We're only going to do a 60% loan on this deal. Then I had to raise another $1 million. And it was just insane. But I think, preparation meets opportunity, and it went really well.
A couple things too, whenever you have stress or anxiety or fear come in, I think, and it's specifically on, when it's something that you have to do, it's because you're not prepared and you know it. So I think being prepared removes, maybe there's always going to be a little fear there and nervousness, but like the anxiety and the stress and the stuff really goes down significantly when you know you're prepared. Like, so you have your life burning down and all the shit, but you know the script, you've memorized the script, you've been writing that shit out every day and all the stuff. But not only that, when it was time to really have to raise real money, these people had seen you out there raising money for these deals that they thought you had and you were doing for 6 months or a year at that point. So you're somewhat of an expert. Yeah. You're kind of the expert in the thing. So, laying all that groundwork is what got those deals done. A couple of things and then we'll wrap up. But self-development and relationships are huge to me. Like, they're the foundation of everything. And self-development it can look a lot of different ways, but I really want to point out like all the different things that you were doing, self-development or mastering the skill set, and for how long you've been doing them to be ready to actually execute on these deals when they came. So how important would you say self-development is? And is it something that you do daily? Like, talk about self-development a little bit.
I've had lots of business coaches, since 2012, I've had, at any given time, I've always had 1 or 2 life/business coaches. Yeah. Because your mindset's really important. LeBron James or Michael Phelps, any high achieving athlete always has a coach or 2 or 3.
I think the more successful people are, the more coaching they have. Yeah,
absolutely. And so I wanted to be the best dad I possibly could. I didn't have a great example growing up. I read so many parenting books. And went to so many seminars and different things about being the best dad I possibly could. And so that's just how I live my life is if I'm going to do something, I want to do it really well. I'm an amazing fly fisherman, which, by the way, we still got to get out.
We do.
I catch crazy amounts of big fish that other people don't, but I obsess over things and I become the best I possibly can by consuming every part. So as a realtor, I did the same thing. Multifamily, did the same thing. I'm constantly doing the same thing in my own life. I'm coaching my kids' soccer teams right now. I have goals. Like, I will be present. I do not use babysitters. I will be with my kids. That's I awesome. Have them 50% of the time. I'm always going to be with them. And if you're not improving, this is what I learned early on, you're digressing.
I agree. One thing I love about having a coach or a mentor or something is you only know what you know. So when you have a coach or you have a mentor, you join a mastermind group, it gives you a new perspective. So when you have your point of reference, your reality, like if you're a guy that's making 250 grand a year and you're hanging around all your high school buddies that, aren't making that, you think you're just this big badass baller, but then you step into a mastermind group where these dudes are all making $1 million a year. Yep. Now you have a new point of reference and you're like, oh shit, I have a long way to go. I have a lot of work to do.
And you'll probably start to improve the more you hang out with them.
You guys have all heard this. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. Yep. But how many of you actually truly take that to heart and think about it? And it applies not only to business, but what kind of dad are they? What kind of husband are they? What kind of friend are they? How do they do in business? What's their spiritual stuff look like?
Who's your partner?
Yeah.
Like I'm divorced.
Dude,
I get to choose who the hell I spend my time with at this point.
Yeah.
And, when you date someone or when you choose to be with someone, are they helping you improve? Are they making your life better? Or are they teaching you bad habits?
I say that people are either an asset or a liability, period.
100%.
They're either, it's one or the other. You know, maybe there's some neutral ground, and at the very lowest vibration, you can tolerate neutral in your life, but like it's either an asset or a liability, no matter what it is or who it is.
I don't want to be with anyone I have to drag up with me. And that's how I felt my entire marriage.
Yeah.
That's how I felt with partners, is like, I want to be a good husband so bad, or a good dad so bad. If I've got to drag you with me to accomplish that, to be a good partner or a good business partner, like, it's not fun. I don't want to drag someone with me. Be with people who say, Michael, you're a fucking baller. Yeah, you got some weird character flaws, but that's okay, because you're going places and you're kicking ass. And here's what you can do to improve. What can I do to improve?
Yeah.
I know I'm dumb sometimes, but what can I do to improve? Those are the type of people I want to be with. Lyndon, my business partner, he's got some really annoying character flaws, but overall, he kicks ass and he has an amazing attitude. Michael Young, my business partner, kicks ass, kind of a jerk sometimes, but overall, 100% committed to being the best he can be and being a good partner for me, and calls me out too. So spend your time with those people and you'll get places.
I believe the quality of your life experience is directly related to the quality of your relationships, because they're either assets or liabilities. So when you're winning, they're there and it's awesome and it's great. But more importantly, in the hard times, and you told me at lunch, when you got to close these 3 deals and you raise $20 million, your wife just hit you with a divorce and all this stuff. And you said, dude, my business partner, Lyndon, fucking stepped up and he's awesome. And
Absolutely.
It's like the people around you and that you surround yourself with, in whatever capacity they are, like that's, for me, that's everything, man. So between self-development and relationships, and the relationships need to be supportive of the self-development, but ideally doing it together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this girl I've been dating just cut someone out of her life. And as soon as I met her over a year ago, I could tell this person in her life was super toxic. Good, really close friend of hers. I'm like, shit, like I didn't want to spend time with her. And what I saw when finally they had this falling out and she cut her out of her life, the positivity that moved in where this negativity was amazing to see. She was at peace.
Yeah.
She wasn't constantly conflicted every time she talked to this person. She wasn't talking to her anymore. So fill that void or push the negative out with the positive. And so that's, I think, my overall mantra in life is really your brain and your life is just a math equation. You have all this negative shit coming in and you got to cancel it out by adding a bunch of positives.
Yeah.
And positives don't naturally come in because life is shitty and difficult and stressful. And so you have to be very purposeful and work really hard to add positivity, whether it's through books, podcasts, or hanging out with positive people. And that's the only way to win at life and really be a happy person.
Yeah. Well, what you're calling, I call that being in alignment, right? So there's all these things that you say you want to do and be and have in life, but it's like, are you the things that you're in control of, or like my mentor, Mark Evans, says, control the controllables. I call them the daily disciplines, but it's like, are you showing up in alignment and consistency and congruency with the person that you say it is you want to be and the things you say you want to do? So like you wanted to do apartment deals, so you're showing up raising money before you need it. So that, I call that being in alignment, and that's everything. You got to audit your whole life, you know, like, and everything in your life is either an asset or a liability in terms of that it's in alignment with where it is you're going and what you want to do, or it's not. So I love that about that. So dude, I'd like to wrap it up with one last question. Like, what would you tell someone who's looking to take down their first multifamily deal? Or commercial deal, or their first, because commercial is your world. So we can keep it that. But what would you tell someone who is where you and I were when we first met in 2016 or 2015?
You know, you mentioned this is a team sport. You know, you said that in a few ways. Most people can either raise money or underwrite and run the numbers on a deal. Most people have one or two skills. Rarely they have both. I can kind of do both, but Lyndon can run circles around me on a spreadsheet. And that's why he was a really good partner. And so I knew I could raise money. So figure out what you're good at and put in the time. It's a numbers game. And either you're going to put in time talking to thousands of people about raising money for a deal and you understand that deal really well, or you're going to spend thousands of hours underwriting different deals until you know exactly what type of deal is a deal that works, and then you bring it together with someone with money. So you have to figure out what you're good at. You have to master your craft. Stop trying to do both. And if you're the underwriting guy, you got to network and find somebody with money. If you're the money guy, you got to find some deal flow with people that understand deals. So understand who you are as a person. My brain works really well with raising money and systems. My partner's brain can sit and stare at a spreadsheet for 8 hours until he figures it out. Yeah. I don't have that. So you have to educate yourself. My friend Travis Chappell asks, is it what you know or is it who you know? Well, figure out what you know, but then you got to find the who. And that's the most important thing. Find your partners and network and find who you can work well with.
I love that, man. That's a great thing. And one thing I would add to that is if you're sitting there realizing, okay, I'm good at underwriting, I like numbers, or I'm good at, like Sam, the money and the sales piece. Well, how do I find my counterpart? And that's going to be putting yourself in a room where people are there who want to do the very thing you're talking about doing. And that's where you're going to find that person.
I'm heading to Houston this weekend to Disrupt's conference because I want more people to align myself with.
Well, Sam, dude, a ton of value, man. I'm super stoked to watch your growth. And
let's go fly fishing soon, dude, by the way.
We will 100%.
As soon as the weather's warm.
We'll 100% go fly fishing. Every time you said, like I see, because my brother loves fishing too, and you met Tyler at that thing, but every time you're posting those monster browns, because we grew up creek fishing our whole lives, and you know, I always forward them to him or send the Instagram
I'll take
story.
you as long as you don't tell people where my secret spot is.
All right, we can make that deal. So Sam, where I believe in networking is the biggest, most powerful thing. You've got a lot of awesome stuff going on. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you? You're doing some multifamily coaching. So how do people find you?
Yeah, mficlub.com. I'm all over Facebook, just Sam Newell. Find me. I'm just posting stuff about me and my kids and multifamily on Facebook. That's the easiest way. You can text me. My number's on Facebook, website, but I've got a podcast coming out soon. I'm sure we'll have you on.
Right on.
But yeah, I would say network like crazy, and would love to talk to anybody. Schedule a call with me, and that'd be great.
Well, dude, thanks so much for coming on the Build a Lifestyle show, and I'm looking forward to fly fishing. Guys, appreciate you watching the show. If you like it, if you found value from it, please like it, share it, tell a friend, leave me a review, and we'll see you guys next week. Hey guys, thank you for taking the time to listen to the show. I appreciate all the love and support. As always, if you like the show, please leave me a review, share it with a friend, and if there's anything I can assist you with, please reach out. I'm here to help. And until then, go build a lifestyle.